It's good to see everybody here. This is our first Twitter Spaces of the year. There will be certainly more to come. I'm Nate. I help manage ecosystem for Moonbeam, and so I end up hosting a bunch of these with a bunch of different teams. This one is a different flavor than we've done in the past, but certainly excited about it. So we are, as you've probably seen on Telegram, there is a Moonbeam Accelerator that will be kicking off here in the next couple of months, and so wanted to bring in Lorenzo from Roker, who is help managing that program. Hey, Lorenzo.
Hey, hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to do a Twitter Spaces today. I think we've seen a bunch of different questions. I know I've answered some on Telegram from teams. We've seen some come in on Twitter. We figured we would have a Twitter Spaces and bring you into the fold, let folks kind of know who you guys are, what you're up to, and trying to answer some questions as we go. So first, why don't we just do introductions from your side, Lorenzo, if you don't mind, just kind of take us through who you guys are, what you're up to, and what your background is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a company builder based out of Miami, launched in 2012. So we've been around for a while at this point, and we've been building many startups, over 50 startups ourselves in partnership with entrepreneurs and also with corporations. We've been working in the US, in Latin America, in Europe. So we kind of like developed some sort of know-how and experience, if you want. And then a couple of years ago, we decided also to launch our accelerator offering, precisely to leverage all of this experience and basically make it accessible to teams that are not necessarily our teams, right? So for us, the accelerator is actually a fun program because we get to work with amazing talent that we source globally, and then we basically sit down with them for about 3 months, and we help them, right? We share our experience, we share our network, and so it's super fun because it gives us a chance to work on many super cool projects at the same time and see these teams, growing and scaling. So yeah, this is kind of like a quick background.
Gotcha. No, that's great. That's good context for folks. And so, kind of jumping into it. So, I think you touched on a little bit about it, just based on the company background. But tell me a little bit about the accelerator that you guys are going to be kind of managing, just high level stuff, just about kind of how long it's going to be, when it's going to kick off, what you're hoping to accomplish for and with teams.
Yeah, sure. So, well, the very first thing is that we're actively recruiting now, and I actually start with a call to action. I invite everybody to apply. The deadline is tomorrow, so hurry up. We already received a bunch of applications, but we're definitely open to receiving more. Then we're going to take a few weeks to go through all of the applications. Most likely, we're going to interview a lot of the teams that apply, the teams that basically pass the first filter, which is based on the form that you can find on the website. And after all of these interviews, we will end up selecting 10 teams, right? So it's a relatively small cohort because we really want to focus on the teams and support and kind of like hands-on. The program is going to start by mid-March, pretty much in a couple of months, and it's gonna go through about 10 weeks of activities plus a couple of weeks. It's basically 3 months, right? So we're going to wrap it up by June, and then we're planning to have a demo day in July for those companies who will eventually show value throughout the program. So I would say this is kind of like from a logistic perspective, if you want. The main things here, the value is that one, you're going to be trained for 3 months. We have basically kind of like 2 programs running at the same time. One is Rockers Bootcamp, which is a program that we build, as I mentioned, based on our own experience of building dozens of startups. So it's specifically focused on company building, best practices, what to do, how to validate hypotheses, how to create investability, like how to create a company that is attractive to investors, right? All of these core important things that any startup should have. And then the other track is specifically focused on Web3, blockchain, and specifically Moonbeam. So it's kind of like two programs in parallel, company building and Moonbeam Web3. And that's kind of like the training, but in reality, there is way more than that. We will give you access to an extended network of mentors from the Moonbeam community and from the Web3 world in general. There is an upfront investment made by Ethereum-compatible, which is, they don't need introductions. It's one of the main players in the VC space, specifically in Web3. So day one, as you get selected, you're going to get a chance to sit down with Ethereum-compatible for, as I said, an upfront investment before we get started with the program. And then, again, eventually, a lot of opportunities to share with the community, to get introduced to experts, to investors, and basically get ready by demo day, right? Demo day is kind of like the end of the year show, right, at school. But in reality, it's a moment in which you, organize everything that you've been working on, and you basically, polish your company and make it ready for the big official launch in front of investors and the community, right? So it's the program goes way beyond education. It's a combination of a lot of things, right? There is a lot of value. It's pretty intense. It's for real builders that are really motivated, but it adds a lot of value, right? So
yeah. No, that's great. That's awesome. And I think that I'm really excited that we meet a lot of teams, a lot of new builders, a lot of new teams trying to go to market, and I think that between the foundation and between the team at Pure Stake and some of the community members, like we try and support teams as best we can and kind of help them, whether they're looking to raise funds or whether they're looking to figure out kind of a marketing strategy and plan. And there's only limited resources, right? And so to me, this is a great way to kind of take some of these teams and really take them from having an idea, maybe already launched a product, but kind of help them formalize it and put together some real steps that I think will be impactful for them, to not just launch the project, but like run a company, and whether it's a hiring plan, things along those lines. That it's not just focused on like how do you build like a crypto project. It's how do you build a business in the Web3 crypto ecosystem, and training really across the landscape on that.
exactly,
now,
yeah.
Now, do you? One of the questions that we've gotten is like, do you have to have a current deployment on Moonbeam? Yes or no?
No. The easy answer is no. Of course, if you have it, it's great. We can look at it. We can ask you about the technology, or we can ask you about the traction. But the reality is that this is a program that is open to not only early stage companies, even to idea stage companies, if you want. And so, yeah, that's not a requirement.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we want to see any of these ideas we will want to see built on Moonbeam. But today, it doesn't have to be a running deployment. You don't have to have an MVP, anything along those lines. You just have to be committed to the Moonbeam and Moonriver ecosystems to kind of get things deployed as you continue to build. And so, one thing we do hear folks ask is, will this help like with dev support? Will you help me build it? Will this program like help find resources? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no, but I'll let you kind of expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So the requirements are pretty low, as we said, right? You don't need to have a product. You don't even need to have an incorporated entity, right? Actually, it's one of the things that most likely we're going to discuss during the program, because it's not an easy thing in many cases to incorporate a blockchain company, especially if there is a token involved. But so we really want to receive applications from anybody, and that's why we keep the requirements low. The only thing that we do ask is you need to have the resources that you're going to need to, one, take advantage of the program, and two, build your company, right? So we don't encourage people to rely on us introducing you to resources, engineers or marketing experts. uh, that's literally the only thing that you need to bring to the table. Well, besides a good idea, right? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is we need to have the ingredients so that we can work with you. We need to have the resources so that we can actually accelerate you, right? We're not going to build your company. We're going to accelerate it.
Yep. Yep. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And look, I mean, we've seen projects that it's, one or two really good devs that are looking to build something, maybe need help on kind of the more business side of things. And I think that's probably where a better fit falls in versus, somebody who might say, hey, I have an idea, but I don't have any devs. That's going to be harder to make sense because ultimately, you guys aren't here to find devs or match with devs, but
Yeah.
if you're already developers and you can kind of bring that expertise and you want help kind of building your business plan, go to market strategy, things like that, that sounds like a better fit, right?
Yeah. So a couple of things there. One is, you don't need a product to get in, but we're expecting you to be able to build a product by the time the accelerator ends. Not necessarily because we want to see like your product with all of the features and all of that, but because we're gonna need something, at least an MVP, so that you can build some traction that you can show to the investors at demo day. And that's why if you don't have the resources, it's gonna be basically impossible for you to look for engineers and at the same time build the MVP. Like 3 months sounds like a long time, but it's not, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing. And the other thing is, the example that you brought up is it's a typical scenario in which you have maybe a couple of founders that are both technical, but they're not maybe experts in business or in marketing or in fundraising. So the way it works is that once we select the 10 teams, we're going to sit down with them individually and we're going to help them identify their needs and their priorities, right? And so you might be super good at tech, but maybe you need to build a pitch deck. You need to understand how to build a fundraising strategy or a marketing plan. Okay, then we're going to focus on that. We're going to help you with that. But vice versa, maybe you're already like an experienced entrepreneur. Maybe you already built a startup in the past, or maybe you even had an exit, but you're still behind a little bit with the product, with the validation of the concept, or with the development. Well, then we're going to focus more on that, right? So as I said before, it's only 10 teams, and the reason is because we really want to give you that personalized support that you need. And so day one, we're going to identify those needs, and then throughout the whole program, we're going to make sure that we work on something that is relevant to you and your team, right?
Yep. 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 And I think that, some of the things you touched on in terms of, I don't want to call it like soft skills or the things that, when you may have an idea and you may be a developer looking to build something, but ultimately things like how do I incorporate my company or how do I, structure my company or how do I kind of get things stood up or what kind of legal advice do I need to hear? Like those are the things that I think are going to be really impactful for a lot of the teams that we continue to engage with. That we continue to see like just amazing talent coming into the Moonbeam and Moonriver ecosystems, but sometimes it is like we just don't have all the answers when it comes to this. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about is getting these teams kind of equipped and ready to go from like a business perspective and be built in a compliant way that people can feel comfortable building and not thinking about, did I structure something incorrectly?
Yeah, exactly. Like you might not necessarily need to raise money, but in any case, the exercise is pretend that at the end of the accelerator, you're, you're going to be put in front of investors. What do investors want to see? They don't want to see just like one super cool product but zero business, or a super cool plan but zero development. They want to see a little bit of everything. And that's so a little bit of everything means hard skills, soft skills. It means the business, the financial, the economics, the company, the incorporation, the legality, right? They want to see that you've been basically spending the right amount of time on all of these little things. A business is a combination of a bunch of different things. It's not just a product or it's not just a super cool business plan. It's a combination of all of these things. And so usually that's the number one thing that we work on. We teach you what you're lacking, we show you what you're lacking, and we help you fill those gaps so that by the time of the program you're kind of like balanced and you know everything that you're supposed to know, and so you're prepared to operate your company autonomously and scale it, right?
Yep. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I certainly don't want to gloss over the fact that I think one of the things we continue to see and the just the crypto space in general, based on everything in 2022 and leading into 2023, like it's definitely gotten harder to kind of raise funds for new teams that are getting started up. But this is going to give you a really good platform to kind of meet investors, talk to investors, and have kind of things all really pulled together and be kind of battle tested when it comes to in I'll give you examples. Like back in 2021, early 2022, like teams could raise money just based on a white paper or based on like an idea, but that doesn't float it any longer. And so I think that having an idea is one thing, but then being able to have a team work with you over a couple month period to get a business plan in place, those are the things that I agree that investors are going to look at. And so if folks are really serious about building something in crypto and Web3 in the Moonbeam ecosystem, these are the tools that are going to really equip you to go out and get capital from investors and kind of build something long term. And I think it's actually happening at the perfect time that the market the market's been tough to say the least for a bit now, and I certainly think that at this point, I hope a lot of the craziness has washed out, and what's left is really a solid base for teams to really feel comfortable building on and kind of going to market and looking at 2023 into 2024 as kind of the next opportunity here. So what are some of the other let me take a look at some of the questions I had kind of pulled together. What if somebody's got a full-time job? What do you think about that?
Well, I had to say this might not be the right program, let's say, unless they are capable of, quitting their job and focusing, at least, reducing from full-time to part-time. But
Sure.
ideally, we want teams to be full-time during the duration of the program, at least. And it's not only because, we're going to have a lot of sessions, a lot of, classes and webinars and activities and this and that. But the reality is because this is kind of like a simulation of real life. So we want to see how good you are as an entrepreneur. And so we need to remove any potential excuse. Like if you fail, at pitching a demo day for whatever reason, you're not ready, you don't have enough traction, or your pitch is not ready or whatever, you can say, oh, because I was working, night shifts at McDonald's, and so I didn't have time to work on it. Like if you fail, it's because the idea doesn't work and you need to pivot, you need more validation, and you need to, if you fail, you need to fail because of real reasons, right? Not because of kind of, and so, yeah, that's a requirement. Now, if you're working full time and you cannot quit, because I understand that life is tough and you still need to eat, right? Besides building companies, well, my recommendation is, maybe wait. We're gonna launch more of these programs. Keep building, keep validating, keep kind of like collecting data. Expand your network, right? Get out of your house, go to events, online, in person, whatever you want. Like you can still grow as an entrepreneur, and that will, potentially get you closer to a program like this one, right? Save some money, look for grants, look for other types of help. But yeah, the accelerator is again, like it's like real life. Like we want you to be a real entrepreneur, right?
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think it's going to be an intense, kind of 3 month program, and I think the commitment is there from from you guys, from the Moonbeam Foundation, from all of the advisors, and so we look for that same type of commitment from from the 10 teams that
Exactly.
end up getting selected. Right.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And so in that same vein, what are some of the most important things you think about when it comes to like running a crypto Web3 startup? What are some of the things that just to talk to the listeners about that might be interested in that?
Well, a little bit related to what I was saying before, right? When you're talking about a Web3 startup, you're talking about two concepts in one. One is Web3 and the other one is a startup. And based on my experience, statistically speaking, if you want, I think that the tendency of Web3 founders is to put too much emphasis on the Web3 piece and not enough emphasis on the startup piece. Meaning, they're probably like super excited about how to leverage the blockchain and maybe smart contracts to build something that didn't exist before, and that's all good. But they don't maybe ask themselves, does it really make sense to build this company, right? Where is the real problem that we're solving? Where is the real solution, the real value proposition? How are we adding value to real people, right? It's too easy to get excited again. Like, you come out with the smartest of the smart contracts and it looks super cool. And all of your peers say, hey, that's super cool. Maybe you participate in a hackathon or whatever. That's all good, right? But that's just like the beginning of the story. And so my recommendation is focus on what people tend to forget, which is you're building a company. Now, the fact that it's Web3 is cool, but where is the company? Where is the business? This needs to make sense to the user, to the market, to potentially your investors, and to all of the stakeholders, right? So that's kind of like my focus, right? It's again, it's maybe it was my personal experience. I got exposed to a lot of Web3 builders, maybe with the wrong mindset, and that's why we're so big on reminding them, hey, you're an entrepreneur and this is a business, right?
Yeah. Well, kind of pivoting back to some of the values coming out of this accelerator. What are some of the marketing efforts that are going to go into the program to kind of help these teams?
Well, I would say there are a couple of things. The first thing is we're going to make sure that you don't waste your bullets, right? Because when teams join the accelerator, they're all about getting exposure, right? And getting support to make a lot of noise and attract a lot of people. In many cases, my experience is that they're not ready for that. And so we want to not necessarily take a step back, but we just want to pause for a second and say, okay, before you make a lot of noise, what do you have to offer, right? And so I would say the first phase of a good marketing plan is actually the validation of the idea, of the product, of the business, or whatever you want, right? So, for example, we're really into this concept of the waiting list, right? So we really encourage teams to put together a waiting list because that's the best way to validate all of those things. Like, did I find a real product, a real problem, right? If nobody signs up, potentially they're not feeling the pain. There is no need for it, right? Am I able to articulate what the solution is going to look like? What is the value proposition? Am I able to reach out to the right people? Because maybe you have a great solution, but you're talking to the wrong people. Am I able to explain this value proposition? Maybe I'm talking to the right people, but they don't get it, right? So building a waiting list, I would say, is the first step to have all of these things in place. And again, if you're able to do that, and in many cases we saw companies that went through our accelerators that were able to get like up to like 500,000 subscribers in, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks. Right. So when you start to see that, then the marketing strategy is kind of like it unwraps automatically almost, right? So number one, before getting into execution, really look at the essence of your business, because good marketing always starts with good business. And the other thing that I would say is, look at it as, if you get it into the accelerator, you're going to be one of the top 10 companies building on Moonbeam at this moment. So one, we're going to help you get access to the whole Moonbeam community, right? We're going to put you in contact with potential partners, potential users, potential clients, communities that might be interested in what you're doing. And two, even just that the Moonbeam team is going to know you, is going to see what you're doing, and they're going to figure out like ways to support you, potentially with some exposure, potentially supporting the launch of your product, for example. And on top of that, I would say it's also it's a big endorsement. like the fact that you get selected and you get trained by the Moonbeam team and by Rocker and by Arrington Capital, like that's a big stamp of endorsement, and that will definitely help you, from a marketing and exposure perspective.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And have you seen? Obviously, I touched on. I think it's harder to kind of get investments these days. Have you seen it like been impossible to get investment, or you just think teams are just being more selective? And I think how do you feel about end of this program? A bunch of investors kind of show up. Have you seen pretty good success in the past programs getting teams funded? And how do you feel about the success rate that we'll have?
Look, I think that the time is perfect, right? I agree with what you mentioned before. We're seeing the industry slowing down. Clearly, this is not the same market as 12 months ago. So yes, investors are investing less money in less companies, smaller checks, at smaller valuations. It's taking longer to go to the due diligence, right? So it takes longer for companies to eventually close the investment. But in reality, look, and I'm very optimistic in general as a person, I think that's great news. It's great news because it's good for the industry, and especially it's good for good teams. If you're real and if you're building a real company, you do want investors to spend a lot of time looking at your company, right? Because one, it means that there is more engagement, and two, and support, and two, because they're going to get rid of a bunch of potential competitors that would just add noise, right, to the conversation, right? So if you're good and if you have a real business, this is actually a great time. On top of that, I would also say I saw companies building, in bull markets, right, when everybody was kind of like rushing, and that's not good, right? You tend to lose the focus. You tend to, for example, release a token even if you're not ready, just because you have FOMO, right? So that is definitely not good, right? Versus now, I think that people are a little bit more serious about what they're doing. There's not so much noise, and you can kind of like play your next steps, next moves, like more strategically. And so I definitely think that this is a market for builders. And also I would add, I spoke with a bunch of investors, right, recently, and I think that everybody is very optimistic about the mid and long term, right? So I think that Q1 started on the right foot, and I'm sure that Q2 and Q3 are going to look definitely better, and this is just going to grow, right? So if you look at the timing, considering that the accelerator ends basically in June, July, I think that is actually the perfect timing to come out with something solid, right, and validated.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. And I agree with you on there's going to be obviously a concerted effort between the Roker team, the Moonbeam ecosystem team. So whether it's Pure Stake or other teams who are already deployed in the ecosystem, I think are going to put their hands up to be able to be advisors and support and collaborators. I think there's going to be a great list of technology providers and partners that are going to join this, as well as really cool and innovative teams that are going to want to put their hand up and talk about their experience building in Moonbeam and think about new collaborations that they could potentially provide to these teams. And so I think it is really a collaborative effort between everyone in this ecosystem to find 10 new teams to bring even more talent into this ecosystem, or even if teams are already built in this ecosystem, really help highlight and showcase some of the cool stuff that's been built here and really hopefully bring it to the masses. So I know that there's links, I think from the tweet thread to be able to sign up. What else? Anything else I missed, Lorenzo, that you wanted to chat about, or kind of a call to action for folks here today?
No, I would just again invite people to at least take a look at the program and really think if this is the right program for them. Again, like the requirements are so low that we do encourage people to apply. Even just going through the application form is a good exercise because it forces you to answer the main questions. What is the problem? What is the solution? Why you? Why now? Do you have the resources, right? So just take a look, and if at least it's going to be a good exercise, and maybe you learn something, right? You learn how an accelerator like a program like ours evaluates projects. And besides that, I can just add, I'm super open. Reach out to me if you have specific questions about the program, what to expect, the dynamics, the logistics, right? We're very open and transparent. We're looking for teams that are going to take advantage of this opportunity. We want to work with teams, we want to really collaborate with them. And so we want to establish a really healthy relationship, right, with the team. So that's why if you have questions, please go ahead. We want to meet you. We want to get to know you. We want to hear about, what you have to bring to the table, and see if there is an opportunity, right? This is not like a selection. This is not like, a test. And if you fail, you're not good. And if you make it, you're cool. No, it's not like that. We're literally looking for partners, right? So it's a kind of like it's an open conversation.
Gotcha. Well, I want to open the floor up if there are any questions. I know generally we don't get folks put hands up on these, but I figured I'd at least open it up because we do have Lorenzo here, and we have had a ton of questions about this coming through different channels. I wanted to open it up. If anybody had questions, feel free to put your hand up. We can bring you on stage. You can ask a question, but if we'll give it a minute, see if anybody puts hands up. If they don't, we can go ahead and close it out.
Looks like we just have one hand here. Actually, we have two. So I'll start with you, DevOps DAO. You should have speaking permissions there.
Hi, guys. Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. So, hi, I'm from DevOps DAO. And actually, hi, Nate. So we applied to the program, and I was just wondering if it would be possible to get some kind of, intermediary kind of a feedback, like application received, is in progress, or something like this. Or maybe, Lorenzo, I may DM you if you allow me. Then maybe we can catch up after the call. It would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me and I can confirm. I'm sure that we received your application, but feel free to reach out to me. And just maybe to explain a little bit how the selection process is going to work. The first filter is this form. Again, basic questions, but we do want to see, one, if you thought about it. Two, if you're taking your time to kind of answer the questions professionally, clearly, right? So, it is a kind of like a way to filter who is serious about this. Whoever passes this first filter gets into the first round of calls. So we're going to schedule one-on-one interviews, and we're going to give you a chance to pitch your idea and talk about all of the good things that you can bring to the table. We will potentially start that first call with specific questions that kind of are the result of us looking at your application form. So it's not the typical pitch in front of investors. We really want to get into the details of those 2, 3, 4 specific aspects that we saw in your application, right? And then at that point, we will basically come up with a list of top 20 applicants. And those are the companies that will get into the second round of interviews. Most likely at that point, our partners will also participate in that round of interviews. So Moonbeam and Arrington. And the idea is basically to nail it down from 20 to 10. And those are the 10 companies that are going to make it, right? So it's a combination of your form, your pitch deck, the information that you will provide, plus, honestly, the conversation, right? We want to get to know you. We want to see if you have the resources that you need, and if you also have the right mindset, the right personality, if we feel that we can work together, if you're open to learn, right? So maybe a little tip that I can share. Usually, during the first interview, we also give you some tips, right? We give you some feedback and say, hey, clearly we don't expect you to be perfect. Otherwise, you wouldn't you wouldn't apply to an accelerator. So it's perfectly fine if your pitch deck is not perfect, or if you have like some aspects that you still need to work on. It's perfectly fine. That actually gives us the opportunity to give you some feedback, but then we also want to see how you're going to use that feedback. So if in the second call, you basically show that you at least thought about it. You don't necessarily need to implement everything that we say, but at least you thought about it in a professional way. Well, that's definitely a plus. Vice versa, if we see that you didn't even pay attention or care, well, that's definitely a red flag, because then how are we going to collaborate for 3 months if you're not even open, right, to consider somebody else's feedback, right? So that's just to show that it's a little bit about the business, but it's also a lot about the founding team and your mindset, your attitude, your capabilities, right? We want committed people that are able to deliver, right?
Yeah, thank you for the feedback, Lorenzo. Much appreciated. Looking really forward to it, and really thank you for this opportunity. And we're looking forward for the collaboration, for the partnership you mentioned. And yeah, about resources and building team, yeah, we are ready, we are there, we have resources available, we're building. So, okay, I'll catch up with you. Thank you, and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we have Zoe MC. Go ahead and add you as speaker. Okay, you have the floor.
Perfect. Hello, guys. Zoe here. Thanks so much for this overview. Very, very exciting. I wanted to understand, I think, more the question to Nate or the Moonbeam team. How does the accelerator connect to your other programs, like grants programs? And are you supporting the teams? Like, do you connect them? Do you want to get them into the grants after the accelerator? Can you explain more about this combination of your programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are separate programs. They're kind of two separate tracks. Obviously, you're not precluded from joining or applying for a Moonbeam Foundation grant. The Moonbeam Foundation will be supporting this as well, with grants to the 10 teams that get support and get added to this. But it's not mutually exclusive. I don't want folks to think they can't, if they have something ready to go and they want to apply for a grant today. Certainly they can do that. These are definitely two separate programs, but the foundation will be supporting this, and as well as the ecosystem will be supporting this with different resources as well.
Cool, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, Lorenzo, thank you so much for the time. This is a huge initiative for us for this year. We're really, really excited about it. We thank the Arrington team for being so supportive and collaborative with it, and I'm really excited to see this kind of get off and rolling. I'm going to be very hands-on with it, and can't wait to see some of the great teams that apply, get accepted, and get this program rolling.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Moonbeam. Good luck, everybody. Looking forward to receiving your applications.
All right, great, cool. Well, we will have more Twitter Spaces to come over the next couple of months, and look forward to seeing folks there. But yeah, go apply, and let's see if it makes sense. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great afternoon.